How's it going, everyone? So I got the okay to pull the intake off of that Kia to look down at the fuel injectors and get a good look and see what's going on. So I got the thing in the shop right now. Let me just show you what's involved. Turn the light on. So you got to take the air snorkel off here. You got intake bolts, you got wiring that has to come off here. Let's see, I guarantee you there's some kind of a support. I've never had one of these off. There's a support at the back side of the motor somewhere. See that blue connector? I believe it's just on the other side of it. That's one, and there's probably one on this side too. Most likely, but we're gonna see. So I'm gonna start by taking the snorkel off. I already loosened up the clamps, so this thing should just like that, should come off. If it gets in my way, I may just take the clamp off of here and just take this hose and just take the whole thing out of the way. So now I'm just going to start by disconnecting stuff. I'm not going to go through the whole thing of filming it and showing it to you. It's pretty self-explanatory. If you got this far, you know, on something like this, then you should be able to figure that much out. So let me just start disconnecting stuff and putting it to the side and see what it takes to get that intake off. There are a few hard to reach screws. There's one back here. There's a 10 millimeter. There's a power steering line that runs across the back and attaches to the top of the plenum here. So that one's a little bit of a pain to get to, but I'm taking it out with a quarter ratchet and a semi-deep 10 millimeter. So it's coming out. I mean, it's really not a big deal. It's just in a tight spot, but everything's coming out the way it should. I wound up having to take the throttle body off just to get to that hose in the back because I couldn't get the top clamp off. It felt like I was going to rip the hose. The way they did that's kind of ridiculous. So I did the bottom there where it goes to the PCV, but I took the throttle body off instead of draining the coolant and everything else because it has coolant tubes going to it. Nothing else special at the moment, so let me just keep going. Got everything disconnected. I moved the harness out of the way a little bit. I got all the screws out. So now this thing should pull straight up. I got the brackets out of the back, so yeah, the whole thing is loose. So I'm gonna have to do this with two hands, get this up and out of here. Oh, actually, maybe not. Oh, there it goes, comes out. I'm just gonna put this on the ground. Never leave it so the openings are facing upward in case something falls in it, because then you might not know about it. All right, so we can see in here, it looks like that other injector might be leaking too. See that? And I see there's wetness up there on that rail. Huh. I wonder if the rail could be leaking. That one's definitely leaking. I don't know if it's the injector or the O-ring. Let me see if there's a way for me to actually turn on the fuel pump on this and just leave it running and see if I can't figure something out. Anyway, what you need to do too is, see how the intake is right now? I'm going to stuff rags down in the holes just to keep stuff from possibly falling into the motor. Just got to make sure that you remember to take the rags out. I've seen somebody do that in the past and they suck the rag down the motor and that creates a whole gigantic problem. So let me do that. Let me clean this up. Let me get rags down there. Now that I got rags down in there, I just realized looking down, I don't know if you could see that. That's actually raw fuel sitting down there. Yeah. That's just raw fuel. So this thing's got a pretty substantial leak. So let me clean all of this up first, and then I'm going to start from scratch. You can see it's over here too. Let me start from scratch. I'm going to clean everything up, get it dried up, and then I'm going to see if I can't do something, even just turning the key on, as long as it actuates the fuel pump. Let me see what I can figure out. There you see, I got it all cleaned up. I sprayed it down with brake clean, then I soaked it up with rags in there, so it should be relatively clean. Now I did find, over in the fuse box here, this relay is supposedly for the fuel pump. So I have this jumper style relay, or this switch basically, it goes in place. Let me turn on the fuel pump and see if I can see where it's leaking from. Now supposedly the pump is on. Oh, there it is. See it? Yeah, that's the rail. Just like I thought. I thought it was an injector, but I said it could have been a rail. That's a rail. There's no way that that's spraying up like that. And I'm looking, yeah, I can actually see it. Hold on a second, let me wipe this down. All right, so I'm wiping it down, and you can see it just comes back immediately right there. So I am thinking that that spot right there is a crack. See it wick out on that spot? Yep. So we have got ourselves a cracked rail. All right, let me shut this off. Pretty neat little tool, right? I love those things. They really come in handy. All right, so now we got to find out about a rail. I bet you there's a TSB or a bulletin or something on these things. I'd be willing to bet. I've never liked them. Chrysler used them years ago on the 3235, I think. And there was a recall where you had to reinforce it with like some epoxy and some straps and stuff like that. It was kind of ridiculous, but I guess it worked. So I never saw one of those leak. But yeah, I mean, look how fast it filled up the little well in there. So, all right. Let's see if we can't get ourselves a fuel rail for this thing. Hey guys, so I'm back at the shop. I got that Kia here, the Sedona. And that fuel rail, well, let me back up a little bit. I made a big mistake. What I should have done, and I learned this at the dealer, anytime you have a problem, always look for bulletins. Even if you just Google, you know, Kia Sedona fuel leak. I would have found there's actually a recall on this. There's a recall for the fuel rail for doing exactly what it's doing. So that was completely my mistake. Let me check the phone, hold on. I should have checked bulletins. If I checked bulletins, I would have come up with this recall. So now I got to throw this all back together. Not a big deal. So what? So I'm going to throw it back together, and we're going to tow it to the dealer. I'm not going to charge him for what I did because I should have looked that up. And you know, like I said, it's completely my mistake. I should have done that. I was actually expecting an O-ring leaking. I never expected this, although it was in my head that it could have been a rail. But anyway, hey, things happen. What am I going to do? But yeah, so I'm going to put it back together. They want the oil change, so we're going to change the oil, and then we're going to tow it over to the dealership, and they're going to do the recall. So anyway, that's it. And they need it back. They want it back together and running again for them to do whatever they got to do, which means they're just going to take apart what I already have apart. And I understand that because I'd rather take something apart than get it already taken apart, if you know what I mean. Even though I may be doing it 1,000 times, I still would rather get it completely assembled. So anyway, that's it. If you're getting something out of my videos, hit that like button. If you could, please subscribe. All right, guys, have a great day. Keep wrenching.